Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. There are 4,800 Christian lawyers that are dedicated to getting DEI out of corporations. These lawyers are not just like people on the outside. Some of these lawyers are already at big law firms and have major corporate clients. They're going to do lawsuits, but they're also going to be pushing companies from the inside because these companies already have business relationships with these existing law firms. These are the same lawyers that helped get rid of Roe v. Wade. They're not playing any games. They're coming after this hard now. And with Trump in the White House and the Justice Department being changed up, this is how we're going to end illegal DEI programs at companies. From Bloomberg, Christian legal group that helped topple Roe shifts to fight DEI. Alliance Defending Freedom trains thousands of allied attorneys in Christian ideology, like 4,800 of them. The group is touting their network of allied lawyers at big law firms. And companies will make moves and do things, and they'll try these crazy illegal programs, but when they get notice from their actual law firm, who is really their legal representative and their legal interpreter of things, and that evidence says you need to cut it out with the DEI programs, enough is enough, this is not defendable in court, the companies tend to listen a little bit more closely. It's one thing to have activists on the outside and some media on the outside, but when your own law firm tells you you're engaging in dangerous behavior, you need to phase these things out. The Justice Department looks like they're going to start going aggressively after this with the new administration. Those companies are going to back off, and the DEI bosses are going to very quickly need to find new jobs. If I were a DEI boss, and I would never do a thing like that, I do not believe in discriminating against people for any reason except merit, I would ask to do what the FBI just did. Shut down the DEI office and try to run away from the DEI positions and jam into human resources as quickly as possible. And some of these people will still do that. But that's not going to escape the notice of these 4,800 Christian lawyers, nor is it going to get them away from the Justice Department, which is going to go after this. Talk about hardcore. Listen to how these people operate. It was late 2022 when hundreds of lawyers across America joined in a virtual Lord's Prayer for Jeremy Tedesco and his mission to promote Christian values in corporate America. A senior lawyer at the country's most powerful conservative legal group that helped orchestrate the end of Roe v. Wade, Tedesco was getting ready to spread the gospel. Corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion policies are anti-Christian and must be eradicated. Quote, "Gracious Holy Father, we humbly come before you today to address the accountability of America's corporations," the host and lawyer Bob Pruitt said in prayer. With barely a pause, the two then delved into their grievances over what they call woke corporations, from Walt Disney to Netflix, and then to Twitter, now X Corp. The webinar, which was obtained by investigative watchdog and news site Documented and seen by Bloomberg News, was disseminated to a network of over 4,800 attorneys across the country who belong to Alliance Defending Freedom. Alliance Defending Freedom is a nonprofit legal organization that fights to protect life, religious freedom, free speech, marriage and family, and parental rights and more. And here is the purpose of their webinar. The purpose was to push those lawyers to convince corporate clients to end DEI programs, including efforts to hire and promote people from minority backgrounds and support LGBT workers as part of a broader project that they say will help make the U.S. friendlier to Christians. And of course, it's not going to be just friendlier to Christians. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It's going to be friendly to Americans because you're not going to have discriminatory illegal programs messing up people's careers on both sides. Because if you're not qualified, you shouldn't get the job. Race, gender, sexual preference is not a job qualification. If you take a job that you didn't earn, you're going to fail at that job, whether it's next year or the year after. You're going to have to start all over again. 2 years going, that movement is gaining unprecedented momentum. Donald Trump's incoming administration has pledged to eradicate federal spending on DEI offices within agencies and ban government contractors from offering bias training. And that will be a lot of influence. So a company who does business with the federal government and gets a government contract will not be allowed to force brainwashing diversity training on their employees. That will affect many, many businesses. You'd be surprised how many businesses have government contracts and want to keep those contracts. Companies from Amazon and Facebook to Walmart have already watered down or scrapped certain programs aimed at recruiting and advancing racially diverse talent, as well as prioritizing contracts with minority-owned businesses. And when we say prioritizing contracts with minority-owned businesses, this means excluding people from bidding on getting work for their business because of their gender or skin color. Facebook said it made changes because the legal policy landscape surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in the United States is changing. It's always been illegal, and now there's going to be some massive accountability for it. Walmart said it chose to curb DEI efforts in order to open doors to opportunities for all our associates, customers, and suppliers. Walmart calls their employees associates. Amazon said it's hoping to foster a more truly inclusive culture. It's unclear if the Alliance Defending Freedom lawyers were involved with these companies. And this is interesting because it's another whole angle of attack on companies pushing these illegal policies. Your lawyer is not suing you, but your lawyer is giving your company legal advice. All of that gets documented in writing. It becomes something that could come out in a lawsuit if a company perpetuates these illegal policies, especially after getting legal advice from their corporate law firm warning them that these are not appropriate or legal policies. I sue that company, I'm going to get access to that documentation. They're certainly not going to illegally destroy any records to try to save the company during that lawsuit, which is why these companies are going to be forced to make some changes. And this kind of influence has nothing to do with suing the company civilly, nothing to do with the Justice Department going after them civilly or criminally. This is another angle of attack that will remove DEI from these companies. ADF, that's the Alliance Defending Freedom, has played a key role in the movement, helping to draft dozens of shareholder resolutions aimed at axing DEI trainings and policies meant to improve representation of racially underrepresented groups at firms. The group is also scoring companies based on their friendliness to Christians through a project called Viewpoint Diversity Score. Quote, the incoming presidential administration will no doubt do its part to hasten the demise of DEI, Tedesco said in an email on January 10th. Quote, doubling down on DEI is doubling down on failure. We expect to see more brands move to distance themselves. The U.S. legal system is crowded with campaigners, liberal and conservative, but ADF stands out both for its in-house successes, helping to write and defend the pro-life Mississippi law that ultimately led to the Supreme Court to overturn the federal right to an abortion, and a unique strategy of recruiting thousands of lawyers across the country to boost its influence. ADF doesn't publicly disclose the names of its allied attorneys, though it says on its website that they include practitioners from big law, meaning large law firms. And those law firms can have 1,000 or more employees. They're very serious operations with a lot of influence at a lot of levels of business, government, wherever you think that you might want influence, they got it. Tedesco said the group regularly encourages shareholders, asset managers, public officials, and others, including attorneys in our network, to promote their corporate accountability work. This is literally an ideological army. Quote, ADF's allied attorneys are the armies in the field, carrying ideologically motivated precedent into these spaces that on their own wouldn't necessarily be as visible, says Allison Gash, a professor and expert on ADF at the University of Oregon. Quote, through the help of these armies, they suddenly have real power. The lawyers who join have to agree to a statement affirming their belief and commitment to the historic Trinitarian Christian faith as revealed in the canon of the Old and New Testaments. Attorneys are encouraged to become ADF allies because the organization will help them to be a change agent. They're offered benefits like grants and funding, as well as training and support from ADF and its 100-strong in-house counsel and staff. Quote, ADF always aspired to have lawyers in large law firms with corporate clients as part of their network, says Joshua Wilson, a professor at the University of Denver who specializes in research in conservative politics. Quote, lawyers wield power in organizations everywhere. So if you have this network and you have lawyers positioned in these institutions, that gives you potential inroads and access. Also, it's difficult to know what advice those attorneys are providing to clients, let alone uptick how ideological motivations are influencing it. But to some American Christian conservatives, DEI policies are seen as a slippery slope towards promoting LGBT rights and abortion. Normal people like American Christian conservatives understand that DEI is fundamentally anti-American. It's completely wrong. It's giving people opportunities that they're not entitled to have and taking opportunities away from people who have earned them based on merit. We all deserve to operate in a meritorious-based environment and be treated fairly at work. That's all they're asking for. ADF's legal argument against these policies is that they infringe on free speech and religious rights. They claim corporate policies banning what they call hate speech or discrimination prevent Christians from saying things or acting in ways that align with their values. Supporters of DEI have pushed back on that characterization, saying it's a misrepresentation of programs and trainings meant to reduce discrimination. They say the goal is to promote inclusive environments and respectful standards for all people, not stifle free speech. Quote, DEI is about opportunities and access for marginalized communities in places they've been excluded, said Leah Watson, an attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union. Equating DEI with something that is anti-religion is inaccurate, and it's meant to mislead. The programs that have traditionally been characterized as DEI are efforts to ensure there's equal opportunity in workplaces and schools, which is required by the law for everyone. Though the Supreme Court ruled against affirmative action in higher education in 2023, no cases related to corporate DEI has reached the High Court just yet. But some lawyers are advising companies to preemptively reconsider some of those programs, particularly scholarships and programs only available to underrepresented groups or women, hiring practices that require people of color to be considered for roles, and bonuses for managers for boosting workplace diversity, in anticipation of any further civil lawsuits and potential government action similar to Trump's previous executive order preventing federal contractors from implementing some diversity trainings. ADF sees itself as a conservative response to the left-leaning American Civil Liberties Union, a legal powerhouse that provides support for lawyers seeking to get involved in civil rights and First Amendment cases. ADF produces a ranking of companies based on their friendliness to Christian values, in many ways the inverse of the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index, which benchmarks companies on their support of LGBT rights based on companies' policies protecting LGBT workers from discrimination, their benefits for same-sex couples and transgender people, and their affirmation of support for LGBT rights and employee training materials, among other factors. And as we've seen over the last several months, the Human Rights Campaign is losing some major companies that are no longer reporting to them and allowing them essentially to dictate their terms to push their agenda inside the company. Meanwhile, the ADF's Viewpoint Diversity Score ranks firms based on factors such as religious and ideological diversity and whether they avoid what they dub as divisive concepts in workforce teaching materials, such as unconscious bias training and discussions around privilege, allyship, and xenophobia, which have no business at any company ever. No exceptions. It does not belong at the workplace. The ADF index has the backing of Christian investment firms that hold $250 billion in assets, according to Inspire Investing, which is closely allied with ADF. Those firms have pledged to punish companies that have low scores and reward those that score well, according to ADF. In a fact sheet sent to allied attorneys in early 2023, ADF encouraged them to direct their corporate clients to use the Viewpoint Diversity Score. ADF urged the lawyers in their network to cite the Viewpoint Diversity Score, quote, in your memos and written guidance to corporate clients, according to a copy of the sheet obtained by Documented and seen by Bloomberg. And a quick note on guidance from your attorney. If your attorney for your corporation is giving you guidance, it's giving you an opinion, it's kind of telling you, you need to sort of do this, or you need to at least get an alternative opinion from another law firm, because guidance from a company lawyer is really saying this is what the legal standard is. If you're aware of the legal standard and you go in a different direction, that is a problem. It's very, very bad in a lawsuit. I'm not saying you should do whatever your lawyer says. I'm saying that these companies are very, very liable if they're going to keep pushing this and their lawyer tells them not to get in trouble in a lawsuit. And while it would be unethical for that lawyer to announce, hey, I gave advice to company ABC and they didn't listen to my guidance and my opinion, you should go sue them. That would not really be appropriate for them to make that information public. I don't know that all these lawyers would go along with that. They may want to see a company get in trouble and let people know who would sue a company this is a good target. ADF also asked attorneys to provide expertise on securities and corporate law to a growing network of allied investors filing shareholder resolutions to hold corporations accountable. ADF helped to draft at least 28 shareholder resolutions introduced by Christian investors during annual shareholder meetings last year. Quote, there was a period of time where it felt like we were losing every battle. The pendulum felt like it was swinging farther and farther to the left, Tedesco said in the webinar. Quote, but as we know, these pendulums often swing back. I feel we're at that moment. He's absolutely right. The pendulum is swinging back the other way. People really overextended themselves with these illegal behaviors. They're about to get caught, they're about to get in trouble, and they're about to get completely rolled back. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.